All right. Welcome, everybody. We are live, our third edition of the American Entrepreneur Podcast.
Nice.
Man, and we got Spurs Jesus in the house tonight.
What's going on, everybody? Glad to be here for the trinity of your show.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Man, I'm super excited to have you here.
Yeah.
We've been friends for a while. Started to talk more recently. Man, we got a lot of exciting stuff going on right now in our city. You know.
Yeah. It's a big moment for San Antonio. We got a mayoral race coming up. We got this big, marvelous project everybody keeps talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Spurs are looking fantastic. Fiesta's coming up.
Oh, man. Tell me about it. About it. I love that. So, the whole purpose, behind this podcast when we originally created it about a year ago, we did our first episode almost exactly a year ago, was to kind of highlight like the American entrepreneur, right?
Yep.
The entrepreneur's journey. And that's a tough journey, truthfully. I've said this, and gosh, Saulo and I were talking about it. Shout out to Saulo, who's doing our media for today. Incredible media specialist. But it's not easy being an entrepreneur.
No.
You know what I mean?
It is not.
It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of sweat, blood, and tears. And, man, a lot of people want to do it, but very few people make it.
Yeah.
And so what we want to talk about and what we want to help is entrepreneurs with some strategies and some things they can do, some information, some techniques, some stories of, how people overcame challenges, how they got to a level of success in their business.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk some fun stuff too, because I want to get into your story a little bit, but how are the Spurs doing, man? And I feel terrible. I feel very, very shameful about this, but I don't know a whole lot about the Spurs right now. But I used to be like almost at every game or watching every game. And I'm like one of those old guys that's just like, I'm not watching these new kids anymore, but I want to know. I want to know now.
Well, Grandpa, let me tell you. Listen, I mean, look, as an entrepreneur, going back to that, it's hard. It's hard to be able to tune into every game, to be at every game, and to stay up with what's going on in the sports world and all that when you're you're trying to run your own business and focus on growing your brand and all that. But that's why people like me exist. So you can tune into my page and my show and you can hear all about the quick summary of what's going on with the team. But anyways, right now as a Spurs fan, it's a weird time. I mean, it's a great time because we had our moment of glory, our dynasty years, and then our big three and some of our key players, like you mentioned earlier, off air, Patty Mills, those kind of guys, Danny Green, moved on to other teams, or our big three retired. And it was kind of what we call the dark ages of the Spurs for a little bit, where we didn't really know what was going to happen. Before we landed the number one pick with Wemby, there was a lot of everybody kind of thought that the ship was sinking, and listen, our organization is incredible. Our back office, our front office, our team. We are extremely, extremely intelligent, and we know what we're doing. And I think that as a fan, watching what was happening during the dark ages that I'm talking about, where we were losing and we were trading everybody away. We were trading all of our players away, our DeMar DeRozans, our big name players, and we weren't getting anything back. We were trading those guys, and what we were getting back was picks. And everybody was like, "What do you mean? We just gave away DeMar DeRozan, or we gave away LaMarcus Aldridge, and we got a pick?" We didn't understand that the team was playing chess, not checkers.
Yes.
And now we're seeing that come back. That's how we got Victor Wembanyama. And now in the matter of a few years, we went from being a championship team, a contender, to being kind of a nobody. Nobody was talking about, didn't expect anything to happen from us. And then we got those picks, and we have 10 first-round picks in the next, I think, 7 years or so, which is huge.
Yeah, I saw that.
So now, just a quick summary, of what's going on. The Spurs are great again. And unfortunately, Victor Wembanyama had a health issue. So did Coach Pop. Yeah. So this season looked early on in the season like we could possibly be a contender once we got De'Aaron Fox, and then shortly after the All-Star break, literally on the way back from the All-Star break, we got the update that Wemby has a deep vein thrombosis, which means he has a blood clot about the size of a grain of rice in a deep vein in his shoulder.
That's what happened to Chris Bosh, right?
That's what happened to Chris Bosh, and that ended his career.
Yeah.
So, but it also happened to Brandon Ingram, another big NBA player, and he had to sit out a season, and he had surgery, and then he came back, and he won the Most Improved Player award the next season. So, it's not a bad thing. It sucks that we don't have Wemby the rest of this season.
Yeah.
But the future is extremely bright for the Spurs. Yeah. And listen, one last thing, I'm going to leave this on, and then you can take it. All right. But listen, as a Spurs fan, all you Spurs fans out there, and I want to hear you guys in the comments. All right. All the fact, it's a double-edged sword. We don't want to see our team losing. We don't want to see Wemby sitting out. We don't want to see Coach Pop out. However, we do have a lot of first-round picks, and we do have a first-round pick coming up in this next draft, right? And a couple picks. So if we have the worse we do basically this season, the better our chances are of getting the number one pick.
Yeah.
And the number one pick very possibly could be superstar collegiate athlete for Duke, Cooper Flagg.
No way.
And if we were to get him,
I like him,
and pair Cooper Flagg with Wemby, it would be like exactly what happened
the Twin Towers, right?
Back when we had David Robinson. David Robinson got injured and he had to sit out for a season, and we did terrible. And because of that, we landed Tim Duncan.
That would be awesome.
And so it kind of would be like history repeating itself for Spurs. And then we would be adding lots more championships here to my robe, which we won.
Dude, I like you speaking that to an existence. That's awesome.
That's right. You gotta look at the bright side. Get a positive out of a negative.
That's
right?
good, man. You know, that's such a good topic actually, because I think that's probably around the time I kind of stopped really watching it. Is when we were making a lot of changes. I remember DeMar DeRozan went.
Yeah.
We traded him, and then Patty Mills, and I was like, man, I don't really know all these guys, and I kind of got a little disinterested. But it's a good entrepreneurial story too, because like most businesses are based on people, right? You have some businesses that are product based or technology based, and we're doing a lot with AI and stuff like that. But you could have all the number one picks, but you can't control what happens to people. Injuries, family issues. Personal issues, etc. And so the best strategy in the world sometimes, when you're dealing with people, you're dealing with people, And so how do you navigate that, as an organization, especially one like the Spurs that's had so much success over the years, has been ran so well. We talk about R.C. Buford and people that just did great things over the years.
Yeah.
And putting the right people in the right seats, How do you do that? How do you make a comeback from, a tough down spike, and when you made all the right moves, but then some unknowns kind of derail you. And so we'll see what happens, but we might make the playoffs still, right? This year. I mean, aren't we still kind of hanging in there?
Look, there's there's always a chance, but I would say that the odds are of us making the playoffs once Wemby went out for this season, dropped to like 1%.
Really? Making the playoffs.
The Spurs are still doing fantastic. Devin Vassell has really come out of his shell.
Castle, right?
Castle and Devin Vassell. Castle, this has presented an opportunity for these kind of players to really, not that they were in the shadow of Wemby, but it gives them an opportunity to step up and really be that shining star in the absence of Wemby. So, Castle has really done that. Castle's a rookie. He's most likely going to win Rookie of the Year this season. He's already won Rookie of the Month many times.
Yeah.
He should have won it again in February. He didn't win it in February, but he won it in January.
He got second place in the slam dunk contest, right? Was it second?
He got robbed in my opinion on that. He should have won. But yeah, he's going to win Rookie of the Year. He's literally solidified himself as an incredible NBA player, a star, somebody that's going to be a big face in this league for a long time, big name in this league for a long time.
Yeah.
And then Devin Vassell's had a kind of a struggle. He was in a little bit of a shooting slump, and he just broke out. I think he dropped like 37 points the other night, and I can't remember his stat line off the top of my head right now, but he became the second player in the NBA ever to drop the stat line that he did is just him and LeBron James. So that's huge. I mean, huge. But yeah, I mean, it gives the opportunity for these players to step up and become big names.
And what do you know about Coach Pop? I mean, is he doing okay? Like, do you think he'll be able to make a comeback? Do you have any information on him, on how he's doing?
So Coach Pop suffered a stroke back in November. The team said it was a mild stroke.
Okay, that's
good. But who really knows about whether that was a mild stroke or not? I know that, of course, the team. No team is going to come out and say, "Oh, he had a massive stroke. He's never coming back," because that sounds like doom and gloom, right?
Yeah.
But from what I've heard, he met with the team a few weeks ago. I think now a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago. First time he's met with the team and actually spoke with the team.
Yeah.
Since his, he suffered his mild stroke.
Right.
And I heard it was a really emotional meeting. It was the first time the players had seen him since he had that issue. So.
Okay.
They got to see their leader suffering a little bit there, or struggling, trying to recover. From what I understand, he's making big strides in his recovery process, but he also just announced that he will not be returning this season, which a lot of people thought he was going to be coming back around February, March possibly, but he will not be returning this season.
Gotcha. All right.
But, I don't know. It's scary. I want to say Pop is, 77 years old?
Okay.
And he's up there.
Stress.
He's up there. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if it's nerve-wracking as a Spurs fan. I think the Spurs are in great hands with Mitch Johnson. He's been doing really well.
Okay.
But you don't want to see Pop go out like that. I would like to have seen Pop retire. On his own terms, not have a medical condition sideline him. So hopefully he gets better. We light your prayer candles up. Light your prayer candles up, for Pop and for Wemby. This is not just a prayer candle, it's a medal too. We'll get to that, but I'm not going to plug that on Pop's behalf right now.
Well, just so to give Coach Pop some credit, like over the years I've always said, if you want to coach your people to be a great coach, it's about helping them create great habits. And one thing I remember about Coach Pop is, Tim Duncan, towards the end of his career after he had won, all these championships and, MVP and everything else, he would still, if he didn't run back, and get back on defense, after a play and just kind of, because, he would do that sometimes and he was getting older too. Coach Pop would jump out of his seat and go out there and just kind of get in his face. And it was so funny because Timmy would be like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. But I love that about him because he never stopped coaching his people, no matter how great they became. And I think that's one of the takeaways. A lot of times I've kind of joked around and said I'm the Coach Popovich of real estate. You know what I mean?
There you go.
I've said that because I'm like,
you got too much hair for that.
Yeah. But no, that's the way I want to be. Like I want to be always like pouring into my people and not ever let down the intensity.
Yeah.
No matter how far along we get, no matter how much success you have, there's always a little bit more. There's always a little bit better you can do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? And so that's what I love about him. Like, that's one of the things I'll always remember about him is he never let up on his guys. Didn't matter if they were, had all the success in the world. He still gave it 100% out there every time.
I think one of the biggest things that made Pop a successful coach and a successful leader is that, he played both sides of the fence on that. In important moments when you needed someone to chew your ass out, no one got preferential treatment. No one got special treatment. You could be Tim Duncan or you could be, the water boy. Yeah. And he'd rip your ass if you weren't doing what you're supposed to be doing. But at the same time,
he would, man.
At the same time, though, he would pull you aside and have an intimate moment with you and treat you like a good father would. And it's kind of, perfectly fitting that his name is Coach Pop because he really was and is like a father figure to a lot of these athletes who one are just on the road so much and away from their family and are young players and or maybe didn't have a prominent father role in their house. And so I think that either way a great leader is going to let you hear about it when you're doing something wrong, but also make sure to praise you and just kind of put their arm around you and make sure that that they care about you on a personal level. You're not just an employee. So I think that's important for a business owner, to make sure that you're doing that with your employees too. is people don't need to be praised and showered with affection all the time.
Right.
But it is important to not just get after people when they're doing the wrong thing. It's important to to acknowledge the wins that your employees are doing for you as well.
That's so good, so good. And he created a culture, right? I mean, it was great leaders create a great culture, and it was a culture. Like what one phrase I use a lot is learning based, which means everybody came out there and it was like, I can get better. I don't have it all figured out. Like, I'm here to grow. It's not about me. It's about everybody, which is it was kind of against the grain when it comes to basketball, because it was kind of more about the individual, and the Spurs were always about the team. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's what I love about the culture that Pop created, is like he created a culture of it's us, not me.
Yeah.
And it was different from what everybody else was seeing. You were seeing the LeBron James and it was focusing on the individual versus the team.
Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the, now we have the Rock out at La Cantera, our new training facility and entertainment complex out there. But that's nicknamed after the term that Coach Pop coined of pounding the rock. And that kind of goes back into, listen, guys, if we all focus on this task together as a team, as a unit, the goal is to get to a championship and then another one and another one. But you got to get there one win at a time, so let's just pound away as a unit and stop thinking about, well, I had a bad game or I scored 50 or, I'm trying to break this record. The ultimate goal is the goal that we set up, out to achieve at the beginning of the season, and that's being the champions. And we got to do that, one hammer swing at a time, And so, that's kind of I think that mindset and that, modality is really what kind of created that bond, and that it's us. It's not about one of us or me, it's about us, And
that's a good transition for us, man, because I want to talk a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. I remember. So
you're trying to make it about me when we just talked about us.
Yeah. I want to, just for a little bit, just a small segment on you. I remember when I first met you, it was at a Spurs game, probably 11 years ago, something like that. And I remember the way that you made me feel when I met you. We had never met each other before, but you gave me the little bro hug, and you took a picture with me. And man, I felt like we had known each other forever. And I left thinking that, man, it was a cool experience, and it was really awesome, And of course, and we're talking, Salo and I were talking about this as well. I mean, the Jesus person, is love and is like this amazing, figure in history and is the Son of God, in my opinion. But so how did you get there, and where are you at now? Because I know that it's 15 years you've been
15 years. Yep, I've been Spurs Jesus for 15 years.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, that's crazy.
I wish we had 15 rings. That'd be cool. Yeah. So I mean, the whole Spurs Jesus thing, it was, it's, and that sometimes that happens with business. Going back to kind of tying it into being an entrepreneur is sometimes the right, you don't anticipate or you don't expect an opportunity to kind of develop in front of you, and then it does, and then you, as an entrepreneur, you kind of capitalize on that.
Yeah.
But I had never planned on being Spurs Jesus for 15 years. I never planned on being Spurs Jesus.
Yeah.
It just kind of happened, and that kind of goes back into the universe, the destiny, the divine, whatever. Because so I decided, I was a personal trainer back in 2007. I was living downtown, and I hated shaving, so I kind of let my beard grow out, kind of like yours. I kept it real short.
Yeah.
And 1 month I let it grow a little bit longer than I normally would. This was around September.
All right.
I've always been, I love art. I've always been in art and been creative and all that. So every Halloween I would make an elaborate Halloween costume that I'd make by hand.
Cool.
And so this year, 2007, I didn't have an idea of what I was going to be yet. I think the year before I was a god from, which is kind of funny, but a god from a movie called The Immortals. And
okay. Yeah, I think I saw that.
Yeah, and it was this guy that wore like this crazy golden suit, and he had like this helmet on that had these like huge golden spikes that stuck in it. So I made this cool, and it was I won a Halloween costume contest wearing that thing. I won like $500 or something like that the year before. So now it's the next year, and I don't have an idea. I'm like, what am I going to be? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to work one day, and one of my personal training buddies was like, man, you looking a little rough. Your beard's getting longer than normal, like, you know. And someone was like, you kind of look like Jesus. And I was like, oh man, you know what? Cool. I used to be slimmer back then, so I looked a little, you know. Anyways, and so I was like, you know what? I'll be Jesus for Halloween. That gives me a reason just to like not keep up with my beard. I can let it keep growing. And so anyways, I did. I made my own costume. I went around. I lived downtown and I worked downtown, so I knew a little bit about everybody. So I went around, you know, and in costume, and everybody thought it was hilarious. They thought that I looked like Jesus, and took a bunch of selfies and all that. And that was that.
Yeah.
Well, the next day was NFL Sunday, and my older brother and I were both diehard Spurs fans, but also, unfortunately, diehard Cowboys fans.
Oh, sorry for that.
Yeah, and so I went to his. He had a Dallas Cowboys barbecue, and kind of just to mess with him and his friends, I showed up at his Dallas Cowboys barbecue, still dressed as Jesus. And rang his doorbell, and you know they answered the door, and there I am standing as Jesus, and they all thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't think ahead to bring a change of clothes.
Okay.
So now it's beers and barbecue down. It's like halftime now, and I'm still sitting there dressed like Jesus, and I look over. And every time I would make eye contact with somebody, they would crack up laughing. And my brother was like, dude, it's tripping me out. He's like, you look like Jesus, And at the time, this is 2007. The Spurs won a championship in 2007. So Spurs were great. We had our big three.
Yeah.
We were in the middle of our dynasty. Well, as a personal trainer, my brother also was a personal trainer. We had clients that they were season ticket holders to the games.
Right.
And so every once in a while, clients would give him tickets, or clients would give me tickets, as just to show of appreciation for helping him lose weight or whatever.
Yeah.
And whenever he had tickets, he'd take me. If I had tickets, I'd take him.
Cool.
And so my brother was like, dude, you should go to a Spurs game like that sometime.
Yeah.
And I was like, I should hold a sign that says Jesus loves the Spurs, and maybe they'll put me on SportsCenter.
That's
right?
awesome.
Yeah. And so the quintessential bro moment. I mean, this is a brother moment. I just wanted to get a picture of myself on SportsCenter, have it blown up, framed with those iconic SportsCenter logo at the bottom, and that was that. Yeah. So I kept that idea. And this kind of goes back to entrepreneurship, business. If you have an idea that you are passionate about, don't give up on it,
Yeah.
But so anyways, I had kept my costume in a storage container under my bed for 3 years.
Wow.
Right. 2010 comes along. I'm still a personal trainer. I have a client that calls me up one time and he says, hey man, I triple booked myself.
Yeah.
I have a board meeting. There's a Spurs game and you and I have a personal training session all at 7:30. He said, I can't get out of my board meeting. It's a big deal. He's like, so I'm going to miss my session. So to make it up to you, you can have my tickets to the game.
Nice.
By the way, they're courtside. And I was like, holy crap.
Sweet.
I never thought I would ever get to sit courtside, and unfortunately my brother still hates me for this, but I took my girlfriend at the time. I didn't take him.
To him, did you?
But anyways, I went and sat courtside, and it went small scale. Yeah, it went small scale viral. I was nervous as hell, but it. I got halfway to my goal. It went small scale viral. It was on ESPN.com, NBA.com, everything San Antonio, anywhere. Wow. But it didn't make it to SportsCenter. Okay. So to continue grinding to get to my goal, I kept on dressing, in the costume. And I also made a social media page. Yeah. And Instagram didn't exist back then. It was just Facebook. And so I thought through social media, maybe SportsCenter would find out about me quicker.
Right.
So I created a Facebook page, and that's how I got the name Spurs Jesus. You can't just be Jesus on Facebook. You have to have a first and a last name. So I was like, okay, if I can't be Jesus on Facebook, then I'll be Spurs Jesus. Yeah. And so that's kind of accidentally how I got the name and the branding. Yeah. And then after that, I just kind of accidentally branded myself in the very beginning, early on, because I kept going to the games, trying to make SportsCenter. And this is the beginning of selfies, when everybody wanted their selfie.
Everybody wants a selfie, yeah.
And so people would come up to me and treat me like a street performer, and they'd be like, hey, man, you look awesome. Can I take a picture with you? That's cool. Look, there's Jesus. Can I take a picture with you?
Yeah.
And people would try to pay me money or buy me a beer or something. And kind of going back to your point of I'm dressed this way, and I want to be respectful of being dressed like Jesus, even though I'm doing it as a fan and tied more so into the Spurs than I'm not walking around thumping a Bible at people. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's all about, if Jesus was, the idea originally was if Jesus was a fan of a sports team, any sports team
it'd be the Spurs,
in worldwide sports, he would be a fan of the Spurs.
100%.
Exactly. They're a stand-up team, great people, great humans, great morals, great beliefs, great, all that. And so that was where the idea came from. And that's what I was trying to do, But so it was really more about, like if Jesus was on a day off, he was just like, look, I'm just trying to watch the game. I'm just cheering for the Spurs, right? So that was what it was about. And so I kept going, people would try to, like I said, give me money or buy me a beer or something. And with the what would Jesus do kind of thought, I was like, I'm not going to take your money or your beer for a picture. It's like, just tag me in your photo.
That's right.
And people would say, well, what do I tag you as? And I said, well, I'm Spurs Jesus on Facebook.
Yeah.
And so I didn't realize what I was doing. I didn't realize that by saying that, I went from being just a fan at the game in a costume, dressed like Jesus, to branding myself as, then when I would go back to the games, to keep trying to make it a sports center, people would be like, look, there's Jesus, someone's dressed like Jesus, go take a picture with him. And other fans would be like, that's not Jesus, that's Spurs Jesus. That's our Spurs Jesus. And I was like, oh man, like I didn't realize I didn't mean to do that.
That's cool.
And then, before I made it to Sports Center, I kept getting invited to do charitable things in San Antonio. And of course, anytime someone invited me to do anything that was for a good cause in San Antonio, kind of sticking with the, what would Jesus do thing, absolutely, I would say yes. Whether it was a 5K run for cancer or a pet adoption event or something like that, I was there. And I, again, at the time, I'm in my early 20s, didn't realize the impact I was making, but I was solidifying myself as I guess a staple in the community and with our fan base by making positive impacts. And then years after that, I realized, okay, now I have a good platform and I have a brand here, because the first, item I ever made, this is not the very first one, but the first piece of merch I ever made was a Fiesta medal.
I like it. It's
and
nice.
Then after that, I was like, okay, you know what? I sold out of those instantly. I realized I had a brand, and there was some opportunity there to develop the brand and turn it into what it is now. So 15 years later. Let's talk about that a little bit because, a couple things. I
love, the whole mindset that you entered into is like doing it for the right reasons and doing it with the right organizations, and I mean, I'm a huge fan of Jesus. And
Me too.
For anybody that hasn't watched the Chosen series, man, that is such an amazing series. It's on Netflix. You can even download a free app called the Chosen. And it's like one of the best like depictions of Jesus I've ever seen. But you know what? The thing I love about it the most is he's like a fun, like he jokes around with the disciples and I could totally see him at a Spurs game, bro.
Right?
I could totally see him go.
I mean, if you think about, as the
that's just
his father, the creator, created all of that, right? So
he spent 3 years, with these 12 guys, and they just lived life together, and they kind of he kind of goofed around with them a little bit and joked around with them. It's just so cool. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. The Chosen. It's such a good one. You guys will love it. But so let's talk about. Okay, so you created this business.
Yeah.
You kind of fell into it. And it's crazy because I kind of fell into real estate too. But you fell into this. You aligned yourself with an amazing organization, and you did things the right way in terms of, from a standpoint of, how do I help people? How do I add value to people? And so now you have a marketing company, and you and I are partnered on some projects, and I'm super excited about what we have coming up. I'm a big student of Gary Vaynerchuk, and, he would say throughout the years is find local influencers which, have an audience and have the ability to, create brands for themselves and align yourself with them and work on projects together. And so that's a great strategy. But I love what you told me one time is you said, well, I only want to work with companies and businesses where I would actually use that service or something that I could actually stand behind. Because I don't want to just take someone's money and market their product if it's not a good product or if it's not like something that people can actually benefit from.
Yeah.
And I love when you said that because it's like, okay, so you're strategically aligning yourself with certain companies, certain individuals, certain entrepreneurs that kind of stand for what you stand for.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's difficult in the world as going down to the basic human need of just being human. We all, unfortunately, money runs the world.
Yes.
And we need money to survive.
100%.
I mean,
100%.
The saying goes that money can't buy happiness, but if you've ever been negative in your bank account and scratching your face off because you're stressed out that you don't know how to pay your bills or how to put food on the table.
It's terrible.
Money can't buy happiness, but it makes things a lot easier.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now.
It's a tool.
Because I've been there. And so it's hard as a human not to just take a paycheck from anybody that wants to give it to you.
Right.
Anybody that wants to say, hey, you got a platform, you've got a brand, I've got this brand, I'd love for you to support it, here's a check. When someone's waving the dollar bills in your face, it's hard to say no. But also comes a point with what's going to, at the end of the day, outside of the dollar bills, make you happy. What's going to help your brand grow in the right direction? What's going to keep you afloat long term rather than short term?
Right.
Kind of like going back to the chess game that we talked about. It's about chess, not checkers. Checkers is the short game. You got to think about the long game.
Right.
And so, I mean, for me, I could have taken paychecks from lots of people, but would it make sense for Spurs Jesus to be sponsored by a strip club or something like that?
Absolutely not.
No, probably not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's a kind of I guess, avenue, a lane that I see a lot of people getting, diluting their word or their brand is by, saying, try this one day, and then next week try this taco company, then the next week try this taco company. It's the best. They're all the best.
They're all the best.
Know what I mean?
Yeah. If everybody's the best,
they kind of dilutes your word a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's such a good point. It's like you kind of have to pick who the best is, or find out who the best is based on results. And that's why these days marketing has become so. And I'm pretty thankful because I feel like we have some good strategies when it comes to, social media, reviews, online reviews, websites, systems like CRMs. How do you keep in touch with people? How do you actually engage folks? How do you add value to people beyond just like, maybe them seeing you and seeing something cool, And so like, I would say one of the reasons I'm most excited about this partnership is because you have a really cool brand and a lot of people really love you. And I will tell you, like, I've been to some people's houses and they have a picture, of a Spurs game that they went to standing next to you and getting the photo.
Yeah.
And it's like their favorite photo. You know what I mean? Like, it's happened on more than a couple occasions where I come into a home because I'm in the real estate business and I'll see a photo on somebody's wall of you and them at a Spurs game, dude. It's hilarious. It's cool.
Awesome. That's awesome. So someone told me that just the other day. I was doing a interview with a media crew that was supporting Beto, our mayoral candidate, which shout out to Beto.
It's good, Beto.
And he said, the kid, he's got to be 22, 23 years old.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, man, like, I can't, like, thanks so much for being here. And he kept saying, I was like, dude, no problem. Like, I'm here.
Yeah.
What are we doing? And he was like, I just can't get over it. He was like, when I was like, maybe like 12 or something, I went to a Spurs game.
Yeah.
He's like, and you took a picture with me and my brother. And he was like, and I just, like, my brother, like, that was the most, like, meaningful thing to him. Like, he cherished that picture for, like, 10 years or whatever. And I was like, that's awesome. It's crazy to me. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Look, real quick, I got to ask you a question. I just saw Hemisphere. Hemisphere just tuned into my live stream on Instagram.
I love it.
And the big talk right now is, and then I want to know, let's bring in the real estate side.
Yeah.
Right? The big talk of the town outside of the mayoral race is Project Marvel.
Yeah.
The
exciting.
Taking over the real estate where the Texas Institute of Culture is, moving that out of the way 100%. And relocating it and building a new stadium. And Project Marvel's more than just a stadium, but the stadium, a new Spurs stadium, is the anchor of that whole project.
Yes.
Tell us what your opinion on Project Marvel and how you stand, what you think, and if you think that would be beneficial for the city or something else.
I love that. That's a great question. And I think it's a fantastic idea. It's pretty amazing to me what's happened with the whole downtown area, Southtown, which we were in the other day. Great event that you threw, by the way. That was such a fun deal.
Thank you. Thank you for supporting it.
Yeah, the Pearl area, and even some of the areas like kind of west of town that were always kind of inner city that like didn't really, you know, the regentrification here is going to take forever. It's coming along. Like people are building, nice houses or refurbishing the old houses, and they're really beautiful. And so we've seen it. We've all seen it, east of town next to the Alamo Dome. That's so funny. I love to tell people when I first got my start in real estate, like 17 years ago was when I started to work. I used to work for a guy. I was a property manager for a guy out of Houston, and he would buy these houses next to the Alamo Dome for like 10, 15 grand. Dude, these things were falling apart. I mean, these houses where you would walk in and it's like Willy Wonka's Wonderland in there. You're just like you're kind of going from, they're all jacked up.
Yeah.
And I used to work
I've
for
been
him.
in some of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he would buy them for 10, 15 grand. He'd slap some paint on the walls, and we would rent them out to like a hardworking family. Maybe they work downtown at one of the hotels or something. And now that whole area, Denver Heights, Dignity Hill, man, you've seen what's going on down there. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in a full cycle of regentrification. So to answer your question, this is right along the lines with where the city is going. And a lot of times I get confused as to why they do things the way they do them, like in terms of like TxDOT and bigger government projects and things like that. But I'm really excited about Project Marvel because it's right where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And there's so much growth and so many things going on downtown. As a matter of fact, we were actually negotiating for Altiza condo, which is the Grand Hyatt.
Yeah.
We had a guy, he wanted to get a condo, and we had our eyes on one. It was a great deal.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great deals out there right now because the market's been a little rough. So a lot of sellers are discounting their price, and so we were getting ready to make an offer on it. And we called the guy, and he says, "Oh, we sold it." And I was like, "Wow, you sold that? Was quick." We had our eye on it. It was sitting there for about 6 months. And he says, "Yeah, well, they made the announcement about the Project Marvel, and now people are starting to buy, and people are getting excited about buying up real estate down there."
Yeah.
So, a little bit of an insider tip.
Yeah.
If you buy real estate, get stuff down there now while we're still, years out from that happening.
I live down there. Quit telling everybody that. I'm trying to buy something down there right now.
Well, we need to get you something, before it gets crazy, because people are already starting to say, okay, if this is going to happen in 4, 5, 6 years, let me get my real estate now because it's going to double, triple in value down there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think with the idea of Project Marvel, I mean, and it's more when I want to hear more about your thoughts on it, but when the Spurs built the SWBC, which became the AT&T Center and now is the Frost Bank Center, they went through name changes. But when they first built the SWBC Center back on the east side, the idea was to develop the east side and to, bring life and city and entrepreneurship and businesses and all of the things down there, an entertainment district to the east side, and nothing happened.
It was a little too soon. The city, that particular area, I'm sure they got a good deal on the real estate there to build it.
Yeah.
But it was a little too soon in the cycle. It's same thing with the Alamo Dome. Look, I love the Alamo Dome.
Yeah.
Like I go to UTSA games. I mean, I think it was great. But I think that's also too the thing about being an entrepreneur and having success in some things is sometimes you got to build it before anybody comes or in areas that it doesn't quite make sense. And so
it's the the old saying is if you build it, they will come. It's not always true.
It's not always true. And what I know is the Spurs did an amazing job while we were there, and I think the city has grown in a lot of tech companies. That's something Beto likes to talk about a lot, is all the tech companies coming into town. That's the reason I like Beto, by the way. We're going to have him on the next show, and he's an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurs can solve problems. And I love the idea that we have more entrepreneurs in government versus the career politicians. Like these are people that can come in and see something and find a solution for it. That doesn't necessarily mean that's going to cost the taxpayer more or be a government problem or a government solution. It's going to be an entrepreneurial solution. Like how do we get the community involved? How do we get growth going? And how do we get, companies coming to the area? And Beto's all over that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about him.
Yeah.
And so we'll talk to him more about that. I'm sure I have a lot to share, but he's got all sorts of tech news coming in.
I think a thing that really hurt it's historically hurt the east side and hurt the Alamo Dome. I mean, not so much the Alamo Dome, but the Dome and then the, current Frost Bank Center is that, 35/37, the highway divides kind of the access between downtown and the east side.
Yeah.
And that's one of the coolest things to me about Project Marvel is the new land bridge that they're proposing that would go over the highway that would connect, downtown
area
to East Side, would connect the new Spurs Stadium to the Alamo Dome. Via about an acre or two of green space, which would be just one beautiful for the city. But it would really open up the flow from our East Side communities to downtown and just really, really connect, our city more. I think that's also really something cool. I got to experience yesterday with Hemisphere Park. There's really a lot of great things going on with that. Today they're opening phase 2 of Civic Park, and I got to see it firsthand last night. It was really, really cool.
How cool.
Because you can imagine all the really great things that are going to be happening there coming really soon. In this month, we got the Final Four coming to San Antonio, and there's going to be all sorts of amazing stuff happening there in that Civic Park area. But the new kind of entryway to Civic Park, to Hemisphere, opens up kind of right towards the Torch of Friendship downtown, which is kind of the main thoroughfare where people come into downtown. So it connects kind of a walking area from Alamo Plaza, the new Alamo Plaza project in front of the Alamo, to the northern side of Hemisphere, Civic Park Phase 2, and then flows through Civic Park Phase 1, and then flows into kind of where the tower is at.
Okay.
But also you can kind of connect and walk into Southtown.
I love that.
So it just you can already see what's coming, and if they were to you can see the future of them developing.
I love it.
Right now it flows really well from downtown to Hemisphere to Southtown.
That's great.
And I think what we're missing again is that flow into the East Side, and with the Project Marvel we'll get that.
We'll get that. That's great. Man, that is such a cool thing, and I can't wait to see it all come together. And so I'm super excited. We're going to do a lot more of these. We've got a lot of really exciting plans together, including a little sneak peek. We've got a little development plan coming together too.
Man.
That is going to be a little gift to the city.
I'm excited about that.
We'll talk more about that in future episodes. And so thank you guys for watching today. Gosh, we ran out of time quickly.
Yeah, it goes by fast when you're having fun, man.
We're having too much fun.
Yeah.
But thank you all for watching today. We've got all of our information in the links there on our social media. If you guys want to get a hold of either myself or Spurs Jesus, we're looking forward to adding more value to you guys. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Peace, guys.